Welcome to The Aspiring Kryptonians, a podcast for Superman fans, hosted by Superman fans, and focused around all things, you guessed it, Superman. After all, we are aspiring Kryptonians. From comics, TV, film and animation, each week we discuss our thoughts on the latest releases, news and even some retrospective reviews. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Aspiring Kryptonians podcast. Joining me today is Evan and David, who you met last episode. So just a reminder that David is one of our supporters and has recently become a member of the team. So look out for some of his comic reviews and news articles on the site as well. And of course, Evan's reviews as well. This episode has just one topic and one topic only, and that is the Batman. So first of all, I'm going to apologise for the lack of Superman in this episode, because it is sadly going to be focused around Batman, which is weird for a Superman podcast, but I feel like this film had to have its own episode. So have you guys seen it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. One word review?
One word review?
Yeah.
One word review. I would say good.
It's just good. How about you, David?
Mine was wow.
Yeah, my one word review would be masterpiece. I thought it was amazing. But we'll go into the details on that in a second. So first of all, hey to Connor, who's listening already. So before we get into this discussion of the film itself, I just wanted to talk about my recent experience with the film, thanks to Warner Brothers and DC Comics in the UK. So firstly, I was invited to watch it just under a month before its release at their offices, which was amazing. There were a select few of us that got to see it, and we kind of got to experience it together. I think there was maybe sort of 10 people in the room for the first time, and we had to sign embargoes to say that we wouldn't tell anyone that we'd seen it or discussed it and all that sort of stuff. So it was quite scary at the time, because we were quite limited on what we could tell people, but it was amazing anyway. So after that, I then got invited to the multimedia screening where I got to see the film again. And then there was also an event prior to that where we got to see the Batmobile in all of its glory, which I took this photo here.
Wow.
And it was amazing. So yeah, we got to see it, and you know what? It just looked so much, not better in person. Obviously, it looks amazing in the film, but it just looked amazing. And we also got to see the suits as well. And there's a little picture of me posing in the middle there, pretending that I'm part of the cast, which I'm not, sadly. But yeah, this is hands down my favorite Batmobile, I think. How about you guys?
Not my favorite Batmobile, but the way that they shot it was great. And that was probably the best Batmobile sequence. So not my favorite look for the Batmobile, but definitely its presence on the screen was awesome. Yeah.
What I like about the costumes is that they're very realistic. Like, it seems like anyone could make them, because they're kind of very tactical looking. And Catwoman's suit is the same as well. And well, when I got to see it in person, you kind of realize how tiny Zoe Kravitz is, because her waist is probably the same size as my leg. Like, that is not a joke. So yeah, she's tiny, but she's amazing. I absolutely adore her in this film.
Well, you look at her next to Robert Pattinson in the movie, and yeah, she's real small.
But then I think he's quite tall, and I don't think he's like very muscly, but he's quite big built, I would say. So I didn't know whether she was small or whether he was just really big.
Either way, they looked the part. So
yes, they did, very much so. Yeah. Just some small before we dive into everything, I just want to say sorry, everybody, for not being around for a while. I've moved. I've got a new job, and I moved across the country to Colorado. I was in Indiana, so sorry. My wonderful Superman office behind me is gone. And Tasmin, I believe you've been moving too, right?
Yeah, so you've noticed my Superman museum's gone as well. Yeah, I've moved back to my hometown just to be close to family with the little one. And we've only been here for 2 weeks, so every room is pretty much full of boxes and stuff still. So we haven't quite settled in just yet, but we're getting there.
Nice. Would you like to see all the stuff in my house? Just nothing.
Oh, I was going to say it looks pretty spotless.
Yeah, my family
Easier
hasn't
to
moved
clean
out
that
here
way.
with me yet. I moved out here 2 weeks ahead of them. So yeah, I'm living the bachelor life, and I don't miss it.
You don't miss it. I bet you're counting down the days till they're back.
I am. I miss them a lot.
Oh. Yeah, it's not easy being away from the family, especially doing something brand new as well. I bet that's tough.
Actually, the job stuff it's my dream job. So I'm
good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, amazing. I haven't actually said that we're going to be going into a lot of detail on this film, so I'm going to issue spoiler warnings from the start. I'm actually in charge of all of the pictures and stuff, which I'm not as good as Evan, so I apologize if you're used to having some seamless gap in between all of the things. But yeah, I'm not as good as Evan, but I'm practicing.
Yeah, you're great. And I'm on my cell phone this time because everything's new and my internet's not great. So sorry, everybody.
All sorts of technical difficulties. It won't be what happened last week. I'll tell you about that off air, but that was
crashed.
Yeah, the whole StreamYard site crashed while we were halfway through the episode.
Half an hour in. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so we had to like. Going back to the Batman. So the day before that I saw the film for the second time, I was asked to do roundtable interviews with the producer and director as well, which was wild. So you can read those interviews; they're on the website now. But it was just great to get to talk to them and to get a bit of insight into how they made the film from the actual people that made it. And then there was also a press conference with the cast, which was just virtual, so we didn't really get to interact with them. It was just sort of pre-recorded kind of thing, but it was still good. I think it's made me more attached to the film having that experience, I think. But yeah, with all that said, on to the main event, which is, of course, the Batman. So please note, again, there will be spoilers throughout the episodes. If you haven't seen the film, please do not listen because they're probably going to ruin everything for you. And I know you like to listen, but it's not worth it. Watch it for yourself. So I've kind of written up a little bit about each of the members of the cast. So I want to get your thoughts on each of the characters and the actors that played them before we get into the actual story and stuff. So obviously, first up is Robert Pattinson, aka Batman / Bruce Wayne. What did you think of him?
This is probably my favorite Batman, except for Ben Affleck. I feel like Ben Affleck was the most comic accurate Batman and really fit into the DC large universe. But as far as like Batman in a solo movie, definitely this is my favorite. And that surprises me because I wasn't expecting it to be. I mean, I think the tone and the way he has done Batman was better for me than the Nolan stuff, which is crazy.
Yeah. How about you, David? What do you think?
I was really skeptical going in, and not just for the casting. This whole production kind of had a rough go of it, with shutdowns and rewrites and all kinds of stuff. But at least according to the media. But I think he pulled it off well. I was surprised how much he was able to exude, in that suit. How his slow movements and his walking and. It was like very deliberate, and no, I have to agree. It's probably my favorite portrayal of Batman. It was surprising.
Yeah, so like you, I think he nailed it, and he did take me by surprise as well. I know a lot of people say not to judge him on his Twilight performance, but for me, that's the only film I've watched with him in, other than The Lighthouse, which I really hated. But other than that, I haven't seen him in anything else, and I didn't hate it because of Robert Pattinson. It was just a really weird film. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've not.
Have you seen it? Don't bother. It's really weird. I still can't get my head around the actual film itself. But yeah, I think he's my favorite Batman too. I love how sort of cut off he is from the world, and I think this is more of a realistic Bruce Wayne because of what's happened to him, all the tragedy. I don't think he Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne is sort of like a playboy. He's always out in the media. I think.
Yeah,
I think he would be more of a recluse like this.
Well, I actually liked Bale's Bruce Wayne. I didn't like his Batman as much, but his Bruce Wayne is not. He's not actually like a playboy. That's all an act. You know, it's just like Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent, where he's just like, you know, incredibly bumbly. Like nobody's that bumbly. It's all just an act, and he changes his posture and everything. In Batman, it's established like he's never actually drunk. He's pretending the whole time to be drunk, and he wants everybody to think that he's just this lame, helpless playboy person, so it would throw suspicion more off of him. And that was one thing in this movie. I'm like, well, nobody ever sees Robert Pattinson. When he comes out, he looks like a guy who never comes out in the daytime, and he's super rich, and I think they'd be more suspicious of him being Batman in this.
True, actually, yeah.
Well, they kind of bring that up. Carmine even says, "Oh, this could bring someone out more reclusive than me." So, but this is also year 2. They mention that as well. So maybe he hasn't figured out the whole Bruce Wayne persona yet. So I think it worked. I think him still trying to feel around this new crusade that he's gone on, and how all the pieces fit. So
for the story they're telling, I think it worked really well.
Also, Evan, great way of getting Superman in on the conversation there. I like it. This Batman was a lot more violent. Well, I suppose Batman's pretty violent in every film that he's in, but this one, he was like enraged. He was out of control in some places, I think, especially at the beginning. Well, actually, throughout the film, actually. I like how he still sort of makes mistakes and needs guiding, and this whole story and rabbit hole that the Riddler sends him on is what actually gets him to knowing what he needs to do or what kind of person that he needs to be in Gotham. I also love the fact that Matt Reeves showcased more the detective side of Batman, because I don't think we see that at all in any of the other films, not as much as we do in this one. He's actually a step ahead of all of the detectives in this one. So when at the beginning, for example, when they're at the crime scene and Batman comes in, everyone's like, whoa, what are you doing? He's picking up on things, he's looking at things, and then people are running over to take pictures of what he's looked at, because they obviously know he's a step ahead of them, really. But I like that.
Yeah, that was great. And as far as the violence goes, that is another big distinction, I think, between the Nolan Batman and this one, because it didn't seem to me like he was doing a lot of like martial arts. It's just he
was Bruiser.
Yeah, he's all rage and just pounding you till you can't move anymore.
Yeah.
And Bale's Batman was more relying on that ninja subterfuge, all the crazy tricks and stuff to cause fear, and then at the last minute swoop in. But nope, this guy's causing fear just by beating you till you can't talk. Yeah.
Well, like the little monologue in the beginning, they think I'm hiding in the shadows. What they don't realize is I am the shadows. So that's kind of ooh.
By the way, that was, in my opinion, the best Batman scene ever filmed on live action. Because man, just the setup for this character to actually finally appear on screen, incredible.
And I like how they zoomed in onto darkness in loads of different places, and obviously he wasn't there, and then you can't even see him when he's there. Yeah. I love that. I was about to say I also love the part at the beginning where he's got this whole monologue thing going, and I think that was really effective, as well as the music, the score for that part was, well, the whole film was just amazing. I love his relationship. I think I like his relationship with every character, actually, in this. Obviously, Selina, it's very early days for them, but I like that they have instant chemistry. I really like his relationship with Commissioner Gordon as well.
Yes.
In terms of look, I think, well, obviously, the Batman suit, it's year 2, like you said, so there's room for improvement, you know what I mean? So it's not his final suit. It's a good suit for the time that he's in. And when you sort of get up close, you can see all the bits and, the Bat logo the chest pops out and all that sort of stuff. It's very cool. It's very tactical, like I said before.
Yet another Superman callback where he can take off his logo and throw it at people.
He doesn't really do that.
This one's This one's a bit more lethal than cling film.
Yeah, that's not cellophane.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, in the UK we call that cling film. Yeah, you probably sat there like, what's she talking about? So we'll move on to Zoe Kravitz, aka Selena Kyle or Catwoman. I am a little bit in love with her. I think I've loved her for a long time, but this just, I love her.
Yeah, she did a great job, and I love the costuming. This and the Nolan movie, they did a clever way of giving her cat ears without giving her cat ears. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, they did it twice in two different ways. That's impressive to me.
Yeah,
this portrayal of Catwoman was also more in tune with the movie. Like, it didn't seem wasted. Like, that was one thing about Anne Hathaway's performance. I was like, I like Anne Hathaway. I liked her Catwoman. But if you throw her out of, The Dark Knight, it still works.
Yep.
With this, she was integral, and that I enjoyed that a lot. That she was a big part of this movie, and really just was Catwoman. Like, there's moments where she's just like, no, I'm doing my thing. Like, I don't need you. Yeah. So that was nice.
Yeah, something to note as well. I liked Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. I like Anne Hathaway, and I like Catwoman, and I like her version of Catwoman. But from that film, I wouldn't really be that interested in a spin-off with just her Catwoman. But with Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, I would happily sit and watch another 3-hour film or a series just based on her and her adventures. And obviously she's gone off on her own, and it would be cool to get to see a bit more of that. But I like how sort of tactile she is. She's tactile, but she's very light. So there's a few scenes where she's jumping roofs and up and down. I don't know what they're called.
Fire escapes?
Yeah, that's it. And there's literally fire escapes. There's literally no sound whatsoever, and I love all the little moves that they put in there as well. And the whole Falcone's daughter thing, I loved that, and I thought that was a great addition. And I like how Batman's sort of assuming that it's not that kind of relationship. He's thinking it's a bit more sinister than what it is, and I love that moment where she told him about it. All the emotion and everything involved in that, she nailed that.
And that was pulled from The Long Halloween.
Yeah,
that storyline. So
a lot of stuff was pulled from The Long Halloween for this movie.
Yeah. Even starts on Halloween night. So
yep. And it's gone. I was going to say
something. My only gripe with this Catwoman is that I wanted to see more fight scenes with her, and I know the ones that we do get, they're amazing. Like, we see how her skill of fighting and how she sort of moves around, and sort of she kind of disables people rather than sort of knocking them out like this Batman does. But I just wanted to see more fight scenes. I want to see more of her signature moves, and I guess that's to come if we get to see more of this Batman, which is most likely, well, I think it's very likely based on the success. But I just wanted to see more.
Her use of the whip, I got real excited when that came out. I was all like, oh, here we go, But this whole movie was kind of action light. It was, the fight scenes didn't take very long, and they were purposeful, but it wasn't very wasn't drawn out. So,
well, and I like that because this is more of a thriller, mystery thriller, and I love it that they're taking Batman in new genres. It just keeps giving us more different and diverse stories, and it's great.
Yeah, exactly. My stepdad, he's a big Batman fan, and we always have conversations on who's better, Superman or Batman. And obviously, I saw this film. He hasn't seen it yet, actually, and he keeps being like, "Oh, is it worth watching?" And I'm like, "Yes." But he comes to me and he's like, "Is it really worth watching though?" Because he knows how I'm quite positive with superhero stuff. If it's a superhero film, I'm probably gonna like it. I'm not as critical as a lot of people, and even if it is average, I'll be like, "Yeah, it's really good." So yeah, when he asked me to explain what it's like, and I said it's not a superhero film. It's like a horror, and it's more of it's a detective thriller film more than anything. I wouldn't even class it as a superhero film.
Yeah, that was going to be like my sticking point if it hadn't worked, because I was like, well, if you can take the elements of Batman out and this is still a good movie, was it really a Batman movie? But the way they did it, no, it's a Batman movie. You can't take those elements out. This is very much steeped in that lore and in the comics, and so I was pleasantly surprised by that myself. And it was one of the things that I think has been missing a lot in a lot of the Batman movies is the detective work. You see very little of it. In that's not there at all. It's just it's like a side part, and this was very much the forefront.
Yeah, definitely. And I like how you kind of went on the detective journey with them as well. As they're finding things, you have to sit and work it out with them. Like, oh, is it this guy? Is it this? And I like that.
The best thing with Penguin is a moment like that where they're going, oh wait, we're wrong.
Yeah. That we'll talk about that in a minute, but that scene just still cracks me up. We'll move on to Paul Dano as the Riddler. So I have no words for this guy. He was incredible. He's probably one of the highlights of the film for me. He was absolutely terrifying, I thought. I love horror films, and I'm very familiar with the Saw films, and he kind of reminded me that all the contraptions and stuff that he made, it really reminded me of Saw and those kind of films. What did you guys think of him as the Riddler?
He's not the Riddler.
It was a very unique take on him. The use of the tropes, I don't think they could have used anyone else. The leaving the clues and things like that. But yeah, it didn't feel traditional. That's probably the word that would be used best. But I thought he was chilling.
Jim Carrey wasn't really the Riddler either.
No.
But the traditional Riddler's, he's just a brilliant genius narcissist. Yeah. And this guy's not a narcissist. He's kind of like I don't know what he is, but he was a scary bad guy. He was a scary serial killer type of person. Mm-hmm. His costume was misleading because it's the Hush costume.
Yep.
Which is it's the best Riddler story there is, in my opinion. And I was expecting them to pull in some more stuff, and especially in the middle of the movie where they put the word hush on the screen. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh man, it's ramping up. It's going to be crazy.
Well, and his monologue at the end is very much like, here we go. But no.
And then it wasn't. So I was kind of disappointed with him as far as a comic book standpoint. But if he had been like the puzzler,
or Clue Master.
Yeah, and was, still doing all the stuff he was doing, then I would have been fine. But because he had the Riddler name on it, it kind of took a little bit away from me.
Okay, fair enough. Did you notice in a lot of the interviews that he did with the press, he praised Jim Carrey's take on the character, and they had the same glasses. Did you notice that?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I did not notice that. And so some parts of Jim Carrey's performance were great. Like, he's much more of a narcissist than this guy was, but then he had too much.
Jim Carrey's it.
Yeah, he had too much performance. So
that's it. Yeah. You can't really take him seriously. I love Jim Carrey. I grew up watching all of his films, but if I see a film where he's sort of he's not as goofy as he is in the other ones, I'm just waiting for it to come rather than taking the film seriously. Okay. I don't know if you guys are the same.
Well, he's done some great dramatic roles. And it depends on what movie he's in. Because, if you're talking about, the number 23, which I haven't seen.
That was good.
The trailer,
The Majestic. He's one of my favorites of his.
Yeah. And The Truman Show. Man,
oh, yeah.
What a powerhouse act. You've never seen The Truman Show?
You need to see The Truman Show.
That is my favorite of all time.
I've been told many times. I don't know why. It's just I've just never watched it. But yeah, the number 23 actually is probably one of my favorite films of his. I totally forgot that was him. But yeah, that's probably one that I didn't that I knew that he wasn't going to be going alrighty then kind of thing in. But what I also liked about Paul Dano's, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I say Dano, but in the UK, we like that's slang for I don't know. We're like, I don't know. But I'm probably saying it totally wrong. I also love how he thought he was teaming up with the Batman rather than, sort of wanting and trying to be
Inspired
a villain.
by.
Yeah, and that was a cool thematic element, but that was another thing that took me out because like the Riddler would never be that delusional as to think that Batman's actually on his team. He would, I think he would orchestrate it to do that reveal at the end, like actually, Batman, I couldn't have done this without you, and then that would get under Batman's skin. But this guy actually really believed it, and that's another thing. Like that's not Riddler for me.
Yeah, I think this is another villain that had a point as to what he was doing. Like, I understand why he was trying to bring all this, the truth out and sort of shame all of these people, but he obviously went about it in a very wrong way. But this kind of, I don't know what you would call it. Is it like an anti-villain? Like he's a villain, but you kind of agree with what he's doing. It's a bit like General Zod in Man of Steel, where he has a point. But going about it the wrong way.
That's the best villains is you can empathize with their motivation, like Thanos. That's he's got a point, but nope, can't be on his
way
team.
Going about it.
Yeah.
Good.
Jason W. George, just while we're on the Riddler, so he says Jim Carrey portrays Riddler from going from meek and unseen to a super ego, and that was just corny and over the top. Do you know what? I've seen the film, but I just can't really remember it very well. I remember him sort of being like a bit goofy in it, but I don't remember the ins and outs of what he was actually like.
To be fair, for that transformation, he was doing a lot of like brain experiments.
Yeah, the whole television wave thing. Yeah. That's true.
So that could have had a big effect on his state of mind.
The opening sequence of the film where he kills the guy running for mayor, that was just amazing. That instantly sort of put the fear into me of this character because when I think of the Riddler, I don't think he seems that scary. I haven't read that many comics with him, and I admit, but that's probably why. But I don't think of him as being scary. But when I saw that and where the bit where the guy's on the phone watching TV and the Riddler's just standing behind him, and he does not even realize that, and the breathing, that was just so. It was just freaky. It was just very well done. It's probably one of the best films, best parts of the film. And I also loved the moment where he saw Batman, where he gets arrested and he's in the cafe, and Batman is watching him through the window, and then he just looks at him and smiles, like a really friendly smile. Like he just does not look like the person that would do these kinds of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very misleading. Well, probably for the people of Gotham, because he just doesn't look like he's capable of something like this. And I also
think that's very intentional.
Yeah, but another of my favorite parts about him was the fact that he's doing all this nasty stuff. I say nasty, it's like unthinkable, unspeakable stuff. And then he's just like, "Oh, hey to my 500 followers, guys." That was just, I thought that was genius. I thought that was great. Evan, I saw you rolling your eyes there.
Yeah, it's definitely, again, if this was the Puzzler, I would have been okay with this. But it's like and this is skipping ahead, but this is another thing that for the Batman movie, it lost me in the third act a little bit because I think they broke away from a lot of what they were doing, and then adding some extra cameo elements and then the big final fight didn't even involve the actual Riddler. It was all his goons, and thematically looking at that with modern, social media and modern violence, it does strike a chord, and it is very poignant, but it's not very Batman, and it's not very Riddler. So that was kind of a letdown.
All the following sort of thing, not necessarily him using the social media and stuff, but people following him to sort of carry on his word reminds me of it. I feel like it's something more people who are teaming up with the Joker would do. You know, sort of act on behalf of him rather than the Riddler. Well, yeah, I don't think I've ever experienced anything in comics or any of the other films where he's in where that's the case.
Well, I just think it's very telling, like, of modern stuff. Like, you have the white supremacist people, and they, you know, people aren't openly following them out in the world, but then, you know, you get on social media and they're like, yeah, like, and, you know, that there's several other groups that are like that, and so I think that's just it's a modern reality. And so I think, you know, they have been applying it to Batman in the modern, or to Joker in the modern comic books. Yeah. And, you know, it makes sense to put that in there. Again, though, it's just not a very Batman or a very Riddler ending. I think you could have kept that element and still had the Riddler come out, you know, at the end and reveal some sort of extra twist. But, you know, whatever.
I do think having people acting on his behalf, and that many people, like when they first find the, I don't know what website it is, like some sort of forum where they were like, yeah, is a rifle's okay and all that sort of stuff. That, I think that makes it a little bit more terrifying than it's not just one person who they've already caught and is able to be caught. It's loads of people that they don't even know. They don't know who they are. They don't know where they are. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I think
it's harder to stop a following.
Yeah. It kind of upped the stakes for them. And yeah, I think it was a good addition to the film itself. But yeah, I see your point. And we'll talk about the particular scene, the cameo scene that you're talking about after a little bit towards. Well, actually, I think it's in a few note slides away. But we'll move on to Jeffrey Wright, who plays Commissioner Jim Gordon. What did you think of him?
He was brilliant. His depiction of him, you know, just the see the detective side and their partnership. I mean, they were partners in this. To really build that relationship between them, I don't think we've ever really have seen that really play out before. And just how they interacted and how they talked and his mannerisms. You know, I love it when he's got to get out of the police department and he's all like, "Hey, you know, just punch me in the face." You know?
Yeah, I love that bit.
Yeah, he was great, and like you said, they're really partners. Like they work together in the Nolan movies, but it's more like Batman is kind of like, I don't know. He kind of reminds me of like a god figure, where he's so far removed from Gordon, and then he'll just give him little bits and pieces to work with, and see how he goes. And then, but here, yeah, they're really working together, and Jim's kind of like calling him out, which is a great, you know, they do that all the time in the comic books. He's like, hey, look, you got to get out of here, or this isn't the time, this isn't the place, this isn't the way. So I really liked his character. I thought it was great. And that's another thing about this movie that I really like, is that Batman has partners. He's with Catwoman, he's with Commissioner Gordon, and it gives me hope that they can do a really great take on Robin in the future.
Well, even Alfred's part in this, you know, was also, you know, helping him out and stuff. So yeah, the relationships that they built between this, you know, it felt more comic accurate than just, hi, I'm Batman, I can do all things. You know, it was good.
Yeah. And I think with the Robin thing, I know Robert Pattinson in a lot of his interviews has expressed his need for a Robin. I think he's very keen to get a Robin. And he said, if they do introduce Robin, it has to be a 13-year-old boy, kind of. It has to be a young Robin. So I think that could be interesting. It'd be interesting to see Robin in this universe. What I like about their Batman and Commissioner Gordon's relationship in this, that they really trust each other, and they have to only trust each other because, you know, the amount of corrupt people Jim thought he could trust, he can't anymore, and he sort of can't believe that these people are capable and actually did all this stuff. So that's quite interesting. Obviously, they don't really know anything at all about each other. Like Gordon obviously doesn't know who he is. I suppose Batman knows who Gordon is and knows a lot more about him than he does him. But yeah, and that, like you said, that moment where he's trying to get him out of the police department, that was just, I thought that was brilliant. And I love, sort of afterwards, he's like, oh, you could have held the punch, because he really I thought, obviously he's got a very serious role, but I think he added a fair bit of humour in some of the moments of this as well. Like when the whole thumb drive thing. Like,
yeah.
I think that was pretty cool.
I think Jim was actually the only comic relief in the movie.
Yeah, and even some of his serious lines too. Well, I don't know. Oswald was kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm saying.
But when they go into the orphanage, he's like, "No guns." He's like, "Hey, man, that's your thing," you know.
Yeah, they're trying to get to they've got the same ideals, but yeah, they obviously have very different ways of going about it, and they have quite a contrast in personalities as well, which, yeah, I quite like them working together. Speaking of Oswald, Colin Farrell as the Penguin, or Oswald Cobblepot, what did you think of him?
Insane.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a good way. I never would have known who the actor was if I didn't know ahead of time.
The actor was, yeah.
Absolutely incredible makeup job, absolutely incredible acting job. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, his parts were, again, not as sophisticated as the Penguin becomes, but as a flunky under Carmine going into becoming that character, I felt you could see those elements. He's very businesslike, very he's wearing suits the whole time. He's clever, even though he sounds like a buffoon. His lines that he gives, you can tell that he's right there with him. What's going on.
Yeah.
But, yes, and very smart move, I think, introducing him here. The Penguin is not a great main antagonist. No. I don't think he's ever had a good story where he's the main bad guy, but he is a fantastic secondary antagonist where he's just another bump in the road to whatever Batman's doing. So I think it's a great choice to put him here, and now he can just continue to appear in every movie and continue to be that thorn in Batman's side, or the unlikely source of help for Batman.
Helpful. Yep.
And I think that's a smart move.
Yeah. Just going back to the prosthetics, yeah, they were incredible. Because they've announced a HBO series with the Penguin, this version of the Penguin. I don't think it's got an official title. I think that's the working title, but it's pretty much going to be like Sopranos kind of thing, I think, with the odd sort of comic reference. I think it's going to be very much like this, where it's not a superhero series or a comic book series. It's more than that. But when the announcement came out, I shared it on social media, and my stepdad was like, "That's not Colin Farrell." I was like, "Yeah, it is."
It is.
It is. But yeah, I loved him. He had me in stitches in some of the stuff that he came out with. I think it's just his, I don't know, it's his personality where he's like, "Take it easy, sweetheart." I love it. And
all right, Mr. Vengeance.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. And the bit where they figured out was it Rata Alada thing, and he's like, "No hablo español." I think Oswald added more humor than Jim Gordon did in this, and Jim Gordon added his fair bit of humor, weirdly, because I wouldn't expect that from the character. But yeah, I think he was just amazing. Like I said, there's a HBO series announced coming soon, so I don't actually know when that's coming, but it's something to look forward to. But for him, this felt like his origin story as well. Like we got to see him grow and got a taste of where he sits within Gotham and also within the crime that's going on in this film. So I'm looking forward to seeing more. And I like the bit where he says I'm not sure if he says it to Batman or Bruce Wayne, I can't remember, but he says, "Don't you know who I am?" And he's like, "Yeah, unfortunately I do." He's like, "I know you very well." So he's obviously got this reputation in Gotham that he's not actually as clever as he is. I think he's one of those misunderstood characters in that sense. Andy Serkis as Alfred. What did you think of him?
Well, wow. Like, I was not expecting. I was afraid they would go a bit more Gotham with their Alfred on this, a bit more militant and kind of hard. And Alfred's always a little bit better when he's softer. And Serkis really, like, the every line he gives, is all like, oh yeah. I mean, and it has some of that Gary Oldman quips in there too. Was it Gary Oldman? No, I'm wrong, aren't I?
It's Michael Caine.
No, it's in BVS.
Oh, Michael Irons.
Jeremy
Jeremy Irons,
Irons.
right?
Jeremy Irons, that's right.
Yeah, where he had that dry wit and sarcasm, and Serkis kind of gives a little bit of that, but it's also in a loving manner, like, oh, am I? Are we going out as Bruce Wayne? Like, let's do that,
Yeah, he did a great job. He did a great balance of being a soft, loving father figure, because he is Batman's dad, basically.
Yeah.
And then also just, being that wit and able to, cut into the quick or comment on his choices like nobody else can. Yeah. Interesting choice to give him a beard, but it looked good. So.
Yeah, this is a very different relationship to what we've seen in the films before, I think. Where you said it's different to Gotham, I thought it was more similar to Sean. Is it Sean Pertwee that does?
Yes.
That plays Alfred in Gotham. Yeah. I thought it reminded me more of his portrayal as Alfred than some of the others that we've seen before, in the sense that we got to see a little bit of his background. Like he said, he was helping Batman with the ciphers, and he's sort of put his SAS background into action, which I thought was pretty cool. And I think we've only really seen that side of him in Gotham.
Well, we saw him a lot in the Snyderverse, really helping Batman. Like he seemed like a very integral part. He's doing all the gadgets and making that Wonder Woman gauntlet for Batman.
Yeah, that's true.
Super proud of it.
That's a good point. I did forget that he's sort of the behind the scenes. He's pretty much Batman as well, isn't he? In that film,
he flies the bat plane remotely and stuff like
that.
Yeah. And who are you?
Yeah. No, he's very good. But yeah, I don't think we've seen necessarily a bad portrayal of Alfred so far. I liked the emotional side that this Alfred added to Bruce Wayne, because obviously Bruce Wayne in this is very shut off. He seems emotionless, even though he is full of emotion. He just doesn't really know how to process it. But I liked the moment where they're in the hospital together. That was just because throughout the film, Bruce is kind of like, oh, you're not. He says it a few times. You're not my dad. You're not my dad. You're not this kind of figure in my life. When he is, he's just sort of refusing to accept that.
Yeah, I'm almost losing him. Makes him realize that, and that speech was really, really poignant. I was afraid there for a second they were going to kill him off. I was like, no, I want more of this Alfred. And then, good, they didn't. Okay.
Where he's driving and he's trying to call, and the woman's like, "Oh, you're too late." I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
It's tense. Jason W. Joy says, "I think I missed it, but maybe you guys can fill me in. What happened to Sal Maroni? Did a news headline or Falcone say that he was killed?"
Yes. They talk about him a lot. They said he was killed, but they don't really
they don't go into it.
They don't show anything. They don't get into it. He's just a mob boss. Yeah, because he's the one that is the impetus for the mystery and the Riddler's vendetta, because the way that they captured or brought down Maroni was corrupt, and they used Falcone and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. That's how Falcone came to be the kingpin of Gotham. Was Maroni's fall. So I don't think he's going to be a player in this series.
Yet another Long Halloween reference.
Yep.
Is it? See, I need to read more Batman books. I need to finish reading the Superman ones too. But yeah, I like all the comic book quips in this. One thing that did annoy me about this is really stupid. It's just me being petty. One thing that really annoyed me in that scene where Bruce and Alfred are in the hospital. So Bruce is saying Falcone. Alfred is saying Falcone.
Yeah.
That annoyed me. I was like, make your mind up. I would say Falcone. What would you say?
I'd say Falcone.
Yeah,
Would you?
I've always heard it Falcone in my head. I don't know why.
I bet that film annoyed you then, because I think they say Falcone most of the
They
time.
do. But either way, if that's what they want to go, I can still read it my way.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the biggest spoiler that we're going to talk about now. So if Connor, I know, said he was listening, but he also said that he hasn't seen it yet, but he's fine with the spoilers. So please just pause this part, because this is probably one of the biggest surprises that we weren't expecting from this film. So please, I'll just give you a few seconds to tune out. But the next one that I want to talk about is Barry Keoghan, who we don't actually see in the film, but we hear him as the Joker.
Well, the unnamed Arkham inmate is how he's credited in the movie, but it's the Joker.
It's Joker. So I thought this was, I can see Evan's face here, so I'm just going to say what I'm going to say, and then I'll let you go for it. So I thought this was a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting it at all. While he was on screen, I didn't know that it was Barry Keoghan until the end credits. I hadn't seen that he was attached to this film.
Face, really.
Yeah.
But you know what they did? They invented a whole extra part that doesn't appear in the movie, that he was purported to come into the studio to play, just to throw people off.
Okay.
So that they would never, suspect who he was really playing.
Interesting. But I had literally watched Eternals a few days before I saw the Batman. So I recognized the voice and I was like, who is this? But yeah, even though you don't really see him, you can see his shadow in parts, and you can see that he's got a lot of, I'm assuming that he's got a lot of prosthetics on. So I'm intrigued to see what Joker this is going to be. The way, it's hard to say, but the way, if they're mentioning prosthetics, it seems to me like it could be the one where he's kind of got his face stapled, a bit like they did in Gotham.
I hope they don't go that route.
Yeah. Yeah, Evan, I'm going to let you take the floor a second, because I'm just intrigued to see what you say.
Man, I really hope they don't do that face staple thing. What a dumb choice. But yeah, I was not thrilled when the Joker showed up, because it just seemed like completely out of place in this film. It seemed like, it's a Marvel move, we're doing. It's just we're throwing in this random thing at the very end to tease what's coming up. And we've already had so much Joker, and there's so many more great bad guys for Batman to fight. As soon as he showed up, I rolled my eyes in the movie theater. I was like, oh my God.
Why?
But I did hear about this, which made it more intriguing to me. The director said there was a second Joker scene in the movie that they took out, and I thought that if they had left that in, it would have been much better. And what it was is that Batman, while he is, I guess, still looking for the Riddler, he goes to the prison or Arkham to talk to the Joker, because the Joker is somebody who he had caught previously, and he's still not, he's still not the Joker. But I think that would have gone a long way to say, okay, this guy's already an established threat. He already has a relationship with Batman, and then at the end, it would make more sense to have him talk to the Riddler,
and give it a Hannibal Lecter type of moment.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah,
I think just the way they went about it this time, didn't do it for me.
I am with you when I think the Joker is overused. He's been in
everything.
I was gonna say, but he is the Batman villain. Do you know what I mean? He's the main. Yeah. He is his main villain. It's like, we've got Lex Luthor in pretty much every Superman film. It's that kind of thing. He's the obvious villain. But yeah, I don't know. I'm intrigued. I'm just intrigued. I don't think we know enough yet about this interaction.
What I think what they should do with the Joker is what they did in the Batman Arkham Origins video game. Have you played that, David?
No.
It's so you're fighting this master bad guy manipulator, and he's recruited all these other villains. And then halfway through the game, it's revealed, surprise, it's the Joker the whole time. And it's his first appearance or whatever. And so it would have been so much better for me if you had a movie where 2/3 of the movie you think it's another bad guy, and then in the third act it's like, oh no, actually it's been the Joker the whole time. But now it's just like, okay, we've tacked on this extra scene. It's obviously the Joker, and it doesn't seem like a super original take on the Joker. So.
Well, they kind of played it smart, though, I think, by keeping his face concealed and just having, the few lines. They can still change actors if they need to. They can change the way he looks. They can, there's not a whole lot. Like, it really was just kind of a little tease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, maybe much like how Joker wasn't needed in Suicide Squad. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But this at least felt like, well, he's there. He's in Arkham. That at least makes sense for him to be there. But yeah, they could have used anybody else, really.
I actually loved the Joker parts in Suicide Squad. I thought that was the best part of the movie.
Yeah, well, they're good, but they weren't needed for that movie. Like, that needed to be its own story.
I don't like the way he speaks in Suicide Squad. It's very.
I love it. Like, Jared Leto's Joker is.
No, I agree.
I think it's great. I like the way he did it better than Heath Ledger. Now, Heath Ledger's performance is incredible, but I feel like Jared Leto's performance in Suicide Squad is more comic accurate. But I did not like him in the Zack Snyder Justice League.
He wasn't needed in that either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they kind of just throw him in for added measure in a lot of these. Connor likes your Joker idea, Evan.
Well, it's too late now, Connor. Can't do it this time, unfortunately.
We have a comment from Jason, but I'm just going to finish up on the Joker before we go into that. But so parts of me, when that scene came on, I did think maybe it could be Two-Face as well, because a lot of prosthetics needed there as well. Like you said, we don't really get to. He doesn't really say anything that's particularly linked to the Joker.
He laughs a lot,
other than his laugh.
Yeah, he laughs a lot, but then so did the Riddler in this. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and the thing about the comeback story, that's a Two-Face type of line. So
yeah, So
Harvey was not the DA in this movie, so could that be a thing?
Yeah. So I was a bit in two minds. I was like, is it the Joker? Could it be Two-Face? But then for those that followed the website rataalada.com after the release, which I thought was really, really clever. I loved what they did with that. So basically after the film, it started loading. So every day you went and checked it, it had gone up a little bit more. So I was like, well, what's coming? So that the final tease was released on Friday. And I thought it was going to be a clip. I thought it was going to be that deleted Joker scene or just something that will give us a little bit more. I was a little bit disappointed with what it was. Maybe I didn't see what other people have seen. But you basically got another cipher thing that you had to work out, which ended up saying Gotham loves a comeback, which we already heard in the film, so we know that's. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's anything new. And then it was like, oh, something's coming, and it downloaded a zip file, all these pictures, which were just pictures from the film itself, of the scene, the pictures of the scene in the Riddler's apartment. So I just thought we were going to get more with that. But they kind of confirmed that it is the Joker and it's not Two-Face, because in the background of the message there were two letters which just ha 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 everywhere. So it's kind of happy.
And the director has just outright said it's the Joker. So
yeah, there's that. He might be misleading information then.
Wouldn't be the first director to do it. Looking at you, Abrams.
Yeah. But if we are going to get the Joker, And well, if we are going to get a second one, I really hope it doesn't take as long as it did to make this film. I know obviously they put their heart and soul into it, and you can see that it's an amazing film, but I can't wait that long. Was it like 5 years?
There was a lot of turmoil at the very beginning because originally Ben Affleck was going to do this one, he's going to direct it, et cetera, and it changed hands.
And then it had all the COVID delays and stuff as well, so that didn't help. But Jason W. George says, what did you think of Martha's maiden name in Arkham?
Bold switch, because she's supposed to be a Kane, but because that's where we get the cousins with Batwoman, is her side of the family. But it works. It harkens back to Flashpoint a little bit, where she became the Joker in that storyline, being a little unstable. So, yeah, I thought that was a clever string to put together.
I may be remembering this wrong, but I'm pretty sure they did this in the comics as well at some point. Where
was it New 52 where she was part of that?
I don't know. I thought
that's where the Port of Owls come from. I can't remember that either. It's been so long.
I thought it was recently, but yeah, I think it's a cool idea because I mean those are two of the most famous families in Gotham lore, the Arkham family and the Wayne family. So it makes sense that they travel in the same circles and that they would meet and get married and whatever.
I like your theory, David, because they are making a Flashpoint film, which has just been delayed again. So it would, and there's I cannot for the life of me remember the actress that played Martha in the film.
I didn't write it down.
I can't remember her name, but you know who I'm talking about. So she's expressed her interest to play the Joker, like that version of the Joker. And so has Jeffrey Dean Morgan, or Jeffrey Morgan Dean, I can't remember which way his name is. So he plays Thomas Wayne in Batman vs. Superman. He's expressed his interest to come back as well. So, maybe that's linking to the Flashpoint film.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan would be an absolutely incredible Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman. I mean, he basically has already played that character in Watchmen.
Yes.
So,
yeah, he did.
He would be very, very good in that role.
Yeah, he was great in Watchmen. I love the actor anyway. I've been watching Walking Dead and he plays Negan, and Negan is my favorite Walking Dead character, even though he was the bad guy. He's brilliant. So yeah, I'd love to see him back as well. So moving away from the cast, talking about the story a little bit. I thought it was great.
Can I bring up one little Easter egg before we move away from the cast? Did you guys notice the Joker's initiates at the beginning of the film is the same actor that plays Tim Drake in Titans?
No, I did not notice that.
I didn't know if that was an intentional thing that they, multiversal type of stuff. But yeah, my wife and I even had to look that up. I was like, I think it's him. And so we looked, I was like, sure enough, it's Tim Drake. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of a clever throw in. And that's the one that, he looks at and he runs away.
Yeah.
So, but then you talked about the 13-year-old angle. So, there goes.
Well, I don't know. He was pretty young though, wasn't he? That character. Mm-hmm. I'd probably say he's around, well, maybe not 13, but he's very young. Maybe 15, 16. So it could be. And I've seen the links. Yeah, because he plays Tim Drake in Titans, which I've just got to that part in the series, actually. But yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think they really should do like a proper child Robin. Because I mean, they did that with X-23 in the Logan movie, and
it really
worked out really well. And I think it's a great, dynamic dichotomy, whatever you want to call
it. Ian Mays says that the Martha Arkham stuff was from Batman Earth 1.
Yeah, okay. Which is really good. So read it.
I'll add it to my very long list. Like I said before, the film didn't really feel like a superhero film, and that's not a criticism. I think it made it feel all the more real. It was a horror detective film, and it reminded me, it was a mix between Zodiac, the Zodiac killer film, and Saw in a lot of places where he's making all these contraptions to kill people, and he doesn't really give them a chance to get out, or not a fair chance, I don't think. And he kind of went on the same detective journey with Batman and Jim Gordon in real time, and it sort of kept me guessing, which I thought. I've seen a lot of people criticize that it's too dark. It's a Batman film. What do you expect?
Like visually too dark or thematically too dark?
I think I've seen comments in both arguments. It is a dark film, as in visually dark, but I think that adds to it, like the whole thing where he's like, I am the shadows.
Yeah. Well, it's, Batman. You're not going to have daytime Batman. Like, that's not really how he's supposed to operate.
Well, and I think being too dark is a valid criticism in the fact that this, I would never take my kids to this movie.
Yeah.
Until they were
a little older,
later teens.
Is it a 15 in the? Was it a 12?
PG-13 is what our rating was, which
So
which,
it'll be a 12 in the UK.
Maybe a little on the underside of that, but I kind of agree that this wasn't something to take my 11-year-old to.
It is a bit grisly for kids, definitely.
But wasn't grotesque. Like, there wasn't blood splatters everywhere. There wasn't, I appreciated that. Like, they kept it, in that realm of what happens, but your imagination is going to be worse than what we can show you.
Yeah,
wasn't grossed out.
I mean, my kids would never sleep again. Because the Riddler's just standing there in the dark, like half the movie. So it's like, nah, you're gonna be like 16 at least before I would take you to see this.
That's fair enough. That's fair. Speaking of scaring kids, I watched this is totally off topic. I apologize. I watched Venom: Let There Be Carnage last night, and I had Cal with me, and he's only 7 months, so he's I'm not expecting him to know what things are like he's seeing, but he saw Venom on the screen and he started crying instantly, and I was like, whoa! I was like, no, you're gonna have nightmares.
He'll forget it.
No, that just reminded me not to watch things like that in front of the little one anymore. The runtime, a lot of people have, before they even go into it, they've said, is it really worth being 3 hours? Oh, 2 hours, 50 minutes. I think it could have been shorter, but it didn't feel like it was a almost 3 hour film when I was watching it. I think every part of it had its time, had its good moments, but I do think it probably could have been shortened a little bit.
Well, for me, as far as superhero movies, let's go. Bring on the 3 hour movies. Like, let's make that normal,
Yeah. Why condense it so much that you miss half the story? And as long as he did it like this, though, where it didn't drag, like 3 hours went by, and you're like, okay, no, I was entertained the entire time, so I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Whether 3 hours be like, man, I wish this was over.
The only reason I say it could have been shorter is because I'm like you. Like, if it's a superhero film and it's good, I'm happy to sit there for, Zack Snyder's Justice League 4 hours. That flew by. I had planned 4 toilet breaks in between and snack breaks, and I didn't even move. We just played it straight through. So as long as it's done well, I'm happy for the long films. And I think this is one of the ones that did it well. But the only reason I say this is because I think it puts the casual viewer off. And a film's intention is to make, not necessarily just make as much money as possible, but it needs to be a success for it to have spin-offs and all this sort of stuff. I'm happy to sit through the 3 hours, and I've seen it twice. Like my stepdad, for example, he loves Batman, but he's not as into it as I am. Like, he's a fan of Batman, but he's not as geeky as I am, and he's probably not willing. He'll fall asleep within 10 minutes, So
I don't know.
The only reason he hasn't seen it yet is because he's trying to find time where he's not going to fall asleep, and he's kind of put off watching it because of the runtime. So I think that is a problem for other people that aren't as nerdy as we are.
True.
Yeah. The story, though, I mean, I think to catch that casual viewer, I think this one does a great job of doing that, because you could just walk into this movie and not know anything about any type of Batman thing, which would be kind of hard to do in this day and age, and still get enjoyment out of this. Like, you didn't have to know nothing. Even his origin story. You didn't have to know it. Which is good.
Yeah.
His origin story.
There's a lot of twists and surprises in the film as well, though, which I liked. Like all the twists were, it's kind of leading towards who was it? It was pointed at the Penguin, thinking that was the rat guy, and then they were like, "Oh, well, it could be Batman." And then I like all the ways that it kind of just threw it through the story in a different direction or after a different person,
which is a really great element of writing, especially for that whole scene at the end where you're thinking this is going to go one way, and the dialogue is going that way, and oh no, we didn't do that way at all. To lead us on for that long was like, wow, okay.
I just love Evan's like, hold on now face. He's just like, wait.
Yeah, that was another big disappointment for me, because again he's in the Hush costume. They put a Hush on the thing, and the big reveal in the Hush story is that
Riddler knows.
Mm-hmm. He's figured out who Batman is, and that's how he's able to just so thoroughly destroy his life. And they didn't do it.
They almost. Yeah. So there's the bit where Riddler's in Arkham and Batman goes to see him, and he's like, "Oh, you came," and then he's kind of. I thought, and Bruce thought, Batman thought,
I know who
that
you are.
He knew who he was. And you can see the fear in Batman's eyes, even though that's a good point as well. So the emotion that Robert Pattinson put through the mask was amazing. Like, you can only see his mouth and you can only see his eyes, but I think he did a great job with that. When he's like really angry, you can like see his eyes sort of shake and pop. Like, it's just really good. But I liked how realistic the storyline was. The Riddler going after corrupt people of power and seeking help and kind of reassurance from social media. Like we said before, that was very of the times, and I think that made everything a bit more poignant.
Yeah, it had some really nice social commentary without throwing it down your throat.
Yeah.
So it was. I always enjoy it when movies, especially comic books, kind of do that, where it's like, oh, I see what you're talking about. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Whereas a lot lately, it's just been, let me spell it out for you with words.
Yeah.
And tell you what I am trying to convey to you. Yeah. I mean, again, I think just the direction they took the Riddler in this, it kind of spoiled the third act for me, because, he wasn't acting like the Riddler. I thought that, there's that guy in the City Hall meeting that Batman's looking at, who's like, the thing that trashed my career, my wife and kids. And I thought that was going to end up being the Riddler. I thought the guy that they captured was going to end up being a decoy or a patsy, which is something the Riddler would totally do in the comic books. And then now it's just him, and he was just a weird, crazy guy. So I will say one thing I do want to talk about that I think was very a much better and cooler cameo than the Joker one was in the final fight, where Batman injects venom into himself.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
My wife and I had because she's a big Batman fan. I have the same thing with my wife than you do with your grandfather. It's like we always talk about who's better. I usually lose because that's what husbands do. But we discussed, is like, was that venom or was that just some sort of like adrenaline type of thing? And I was like, I don't know. It was green.
Yeah,
like,
it's got to be venom.
It's got to be venom.
I thought it was adrenaline. But is that
that's
a
what
comic?
Bane uses.
Yes.
Yeah.
To pump himself up.
There's a great iconic story where Batman starts using venom to help fight the bad guys, and he gets addicted to it, and he starts making compromises and kind of doing a little crime on the side himself just to stay in the venom. And eventually he snaps out of it because it makes him rage, and,
just like it's kind of uncontrollable.
And he did rage in this as well.
Exactly, he went too far.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why I think there's no way that's not venom. And that's
it's got to be.
That's a great way to go. And at the end, after he figures out that this stuff has got to go, he has Alfred lock him in the Batcave for a month, and he can't he can't escape. And so like he's like beating on the door and begging and screaming and crying for Alfred to let him out. And then at the end, he opens up the door and Batman's got this huge beard and he's like been living off of bats. And he's like, I'm better now. And man, I think that's just a cool direction that they've never taken the movies. And I think that would be a very cool way to go.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I didn't know that was a thing, but yeah, I just assumed it was adrenaline, but that is much better. Well, I've got a section where we talk about our gripes with the film, but I'm just going to bring one of them up now. The only thing that did make me squeam a little bit in terms of like corniness is the ending. Like the very end, not the third act, but the very sort of last scenes where Batman's, he's talking about hope. All the skies are bright. He's carrying people to safety. They're trusting him. That's not Batman. That's Superman.
Yeah, that was another big thing with me. And what's Batman doing half the movie? He's just walking into gunfire, bulletproof.
Yeah.
But he's got armor.
I know, but that is Superman's thing. Batman
It is.
jumps out of the way and throws batarangs at people and takes them out in creative ways. I mean, it's just so disingenuous. Because they refuse to make a good Superman movie. They refuse to continue to do that. But now we're going to take two of the most iconic things about Superman, the hope message and the bulletproof crime fighting, and we're going to put it in Batman. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, be better.
I don't know. I liked the hope message, though. Like, to me,
I like walking into bullets part, but I didn't like the hope. It's not I didn't like it. Like, it's a nice idea for a film, and it makes sense that you can see that he's grown and come to be a new person because of all of this and a new mindset. But it's
well, it was his horror. It was his ooh, that one almost came out wrong. It was his hero moment. I was trying to say hero origin in the same word, and that just wasn't going to happen. We already have him being the Dark Knight, Gotham's protector, but this was, him being the Caped Crusader, the rise of him being the hero, and I think having that little bit of message of hope, kind of shows that's kind of why Superman and Batman work together, because in the end they have similar wants for outcomes. The way they go about it is different. And to me, I was like, okay, cool. Like, we're seeing this moment where, he realizes, no, I have to be something more than just anger and fear.
I think what bothered me most about it was that they just spelled it out. They used the word, right? Where they could have just shown him, being the fireman type guy and helping
everyone out
be saved and, things like that. But the fact that they spelled it out and stuff and used the word hope, like Batman, I don't think Batman would ever say that. And I don't think they would ever put that as a tagline on any Batman book. So I think they could have done exactly what you're saying, except without spelling it out and riffing on Superman.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think as well, I think it's a nice message. And like you said, David, it makes sense at the end. But I think, there's rumors that this is going to be a trilogy film. So I would have liked to see that part at the very end of the trilogy. I still want to see the messed up Batman who's still making mistakes, still struggling as to where he fits in. I want to see more of that, and then him be more established at the very end.
Well, they could be doing like a lifetime arc sort of thing. So they could bring in Robin in the next one, and that could be Batman year 5 or 6, and then and then the third one, you could get Batgirl and Nightwing or something, and I don't know. It could. They could be telling an epic, lifelong story sort of thing, which I think would be very cool. That's one of the great things about Batman in the comics that we don't really see in the movies, is that he's been at it so long. He's left a legacy, and he's got these partners that have come and gone. And the Batman family is one of the greatest things about the Batman books. And we hardly ever get to see any of them.
Well, we got Batgirl coming up soon.
True, but will Batman be in that?
Well, it won't be this Batman.
That's Michael Keaton, isn't it? He's in it, isn't he?
I think it's Keaton.
I'm sure I've seen set photos of Michael. I'm sure it's Michael Keaton. I'm not sure.
I think it's Keaton.
Yeah. Just linking back to your bullets comments, so Jason W. Jaws says the fact that the amount of bullets would hit his jaw, so it took me out of it every time he was shot at. Yeah, I mean, you can see it on Batman. Well, that's the part of Batman you can see. So you'd think that all these people would aim for that rather than else.
Another thing I totally agree, because it took me out where Batman's hanging off the ledge and that Riddler guy's just slowly putting the gun together, and then he starts putting it toward his face. I'm like, oh, he's gonna shoot him in the mouth, because that's the only part I'm protecting. No, puts it right up his forehead. It's clearly armored helmet portion.
Although I did appreciate that the close range shot dislocated his shoulder. I mean, that's why he was, couldn't get back up, because he was like, my arm's gone, So at least there was a little bit of realism with, the tactical being shot up close.
So we'll go at the effects. So a lot of it was practical effects, which Matt Reeves, the director, confirmed, which I thought was amazing. The Batmobile shot, or the chase, that was real. There was no CGI.
That was the best.
Yeah.
So good.
We'll talk about. Oh no, we'll talk about it now. But yeah, even the bit where he's getting shot at in the hallway, they were practical effects as well. There was no CGI in that as well. Obviously, they're not actual bullets, but
bullets.
Yeah. And for the Batmobile chase where he's chasing the Penguin, that was just epic. That's probably the best Batmobile chase I've ever seen. And I don't think you're not going to easily top that. But they really drove the car through fire. Reeves and the crew had put cameras on the actual cars to make it more realistic, and you can see where they've done that, where you can see like the wheels spinning at the back, and all the background sort of swerving behind as well. That was really cool. But it just made it more realistic, and all the sound effects as well. It just put you there. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and the angles that they shot it at, where you're looking through through mirrors and stuff, it was just like, it was wow.
Well, the cinematography was next level.
Yeah. And the scenes as well where the bat and the cat are on the rooftop, and the sky is just gorgeous. It is literally taken straight out of a Tom King comic, that and Clayman, their artwork. It is taken straight out of that, and definitely. But when they did use CGI, which I'm assuming the scene where he sort of jumps off the building and takes flight for the first time, I'm assuming that was CGI.
Maybe.
But you can't really tell. It's all very subtle when they do use it, or if they do use it. I'm assuming that was CGI.
Who knows? He was in a base jumping suit, and you can really base jump for real.
Yeah. So that could have been a stuntman.
Yeah.
So.
Well, either way, I just love how real it is. Yeah. Which is not noticeable. The one thing I do know that was CGI is the architecture. Matt Reeves explained that he didn't want Gotham to look like a particular place. He didn't want it. He filmed scenes of it in, I think it's Glasgow and Liverpool, and then it put background skyscrapers from other cities onto that thing, so it looked like a genuinely new place, which was pretty cool. So I know that was CGI, but I'm not sure about the rest. How about the score then?
Score? Yeah, really good.
I liked how it hints at other scores. Like, there are moments where you're like, and we're going to go into Elfman, and it didn't. But my wife even pointed out that there's a lot of riffs on Something in the Way throughout the orchestrational score of it too. And I was like, that was kind of nice too. Like, this is a theme, of him kind of dealing with, what am I doing? Am I doing anything good? Is this really the direction I need to be going? And do I care?
And Matt Reeves actually said that they chose that song because of the relation. He wanted Bruce Wayne's relationship with fame to be similar to what Kurt Cobain had with fame. So the whole sort of
they pulled that off
kind of thing. I think that was some of the inspiration behind that particular song choice. But I thought it was amazing. It was by Michael Giacchino. You know, that was close. But I thought it was amazing. I know there's a whole soundtrack, loads of different songs on character themes, but the Batman one was just amazing. I like how they played it. Like, I still can't get it out of my head. Sometimes I'm just sat in the house like dum 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 dum. I just start humming it. I'm like, what am I doing? But I just love the way it's used. The way it's used reminded me of Zack Snyder's Justice League, where they kept playing the Wonder Woman theme every time she turned up.
Yeah.
They played it with it was slightly altered in tone, and they kind of did that with this.
I need to listen to the soundtrack more because I cannot get the Encanto soundtrack out of my head. It will not leave, and I need to get something else.
Yeah. You gotta talk about something else, man.
Stop.
I mean, you can let it go. Yeah, that was a bad joke. Sorry.
Oh dear. Just going back, Jason W. George says we all agree that a lot of people died when that gas truck blew up, right? Yes, definitely the driver.
Explosions do tend to do that.
When they blew up the seawall?
No, I think he's talking about the chase scene.
Oh, the chase scene. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there was death in this movie, but none of it was directly Batman's doing, and I also appreciated that. Like, there was even the people he's knocking off at the end of the movie, you know, they're on zip line, so they're just hanging there. He's like, all right, cool. And so
yeah, that's a good point. Okay then, so we'll talk about gripes, or our least favorite parts. I think we've talked about quite a few of them already. But for me, like I said, it was the hopeful ending. I just don't think it sat well with the rest of the film, like the tone of the rest of the film. And like we said before, it's more of a Superman thing than it is a Batman thing. I wanted to see more of Catwoman's fights, or fights featuring Catwoman, because we only really saw her. She took on Batman a little bit, and then they kind of made friends. Then she had a little bit of a scrap with Falcone, but it wasn't very physical. It was more a shooting chase, and then she took out some of the Penguin's guys after she found her friend. I don't know, I just wanted to see more of her. I don't think we saw enough. And here's my biggest gripe. I know we said that Alfred, the Falcone thing, but how in the world did the Penguin's saloon car stay ahead of the Batmobile?
True.
Because Batman wanted it to.
He must have, because the car must not be as fast as he hoped it was.
Well, Penguin was knocking a lot of obstacles in his way, so Penguin's path is pretty straightforward, but Batman's having to dodge a bunch of stuff
and ramp over exploding vehicles. It's a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I just thought it's just maybe could have had a better car.
One of my favorite things about the animated series and some of the comic books is that Batman has a mechanic. And I really like that. And I wish they would put that in the movies. There's this one guy who Batman trusts in the whole world to actually make his car. And he still doesn't know he's Bruce Wayne, right? But he's come to this guy and he's still doing it, and they're having to do it undercover. And that's actually a Penguin-centric episode in the animated series. So
okay. But other than what we've already talked about, what were your gripes?
I think that was it for me.
Yeah. Dave? Oh, is Dave frozen?
Hello?
I think Dave's frozen. He hasn't moved. We'll wait for Dave to come back. But in the meantime, so Jason W. George says that he didn't like this version of Bruce Wayne. He likes a more sleek and more in control of his business and money Bruce. I never liked all the movie interpretations that he doesn't really care about Wayne Enterprise. And yeah, that was definitely the case in this. We didn't really see much of Wayne Enterprise. And when he was sort of asked to represent Wayne Enterprise, when Alfred invites the accounts people for breakfast or something. He's just not interested.
Yeah, and that is a cool part about the Bruce Wayne character, is that he tries to make people think that he's flippant, but actually he's not only is he doing stuff as Batman, but he's leveraging his wealth and his company to do things for Gotham that a lot of people don't even know about.
Exactly. And there was that bit, I cannot for the life of me remember her name, the woman that turns out to be the mayor towards the end.
Yeah.
She actually said that I've been trying to get hold of you for ages, Bruce. You're not doing anything to help this city. Everyone was just like, he's Batman. Doing everything. He's doing as much as he can. So that was quite funny. David is back.
Sorry. My internet crashed on me for a moment.
Well, we were just talking to you and you just frozen. I was like, he's not moving. But while you're here and we're still talking about the gripes of the film, do you have any bits that kind of ticked you off a little bit?
The only one that really came to mind, and I was looking because like I said, I went to this movie kind of like I didn't really want to like it. I don't know why I had that mood going in. But I was just kind of like, I don't know this thing. So the very first scene where we're looking through the POV of the Riddler, looking through those binoculars and everything's kind of choppy and wiggly. I hate that type of filming style. So I was like, oh, please don't let this be the entire movie. It would totally be terrible. But other than that, the only thing I could think of is the portrayal of the Riddler was so different. But it worked, I think, for this story. So I had to kind of be like, okay, that's just this is where this is how this is happening.
Yeah,
but
I guess you kind of have to do them as a separate, maybe not the Riddler, maybe a different version.
The Puzzler.
Yeah. I mean, the multiverse is a thing, sure. But yeah, I mean, I loved a lot of things about this movie that I probably shouldn't have.
Well, moving on to that, I wanted to bring up the gripes and the least favorite moments first of all, so we can end on a high. So, what were your favorite moments?
The Batmobile chase, and then like I said, the opening was the best Batman scene I've ever seen, and it was just so good. And then I love the cinematography throughout the movie. So unique, so different from anything else we've seen with a Batman thing, and just very, very artful, and I liked it a lot. And then the characters, all of them except the Riddler, were great.
Yeah, the use of red throughout the movie, that seeing red, that seeing anger, that I like that symbolism.
Yeah, for me, hands down, the best part was the Batmobile chase. That was just amazing. But most importantly, though, of the best moment of that chase was when he fired up the Batmobile for the first time. Like, it was just there, and I don't know, it was kind of like Back to the Future, wasn't it? You had it turned blue, and
well, it's like a monster.
Yeah.
Well, even the Capsule alert is, it's like this is gonna be bad.
Yeah, and it was kind of like where they're playing on the whole "I am the shadows" kind of thing. It was the same with the Batmobile as well, because it was there the whole time, but nobody saw it. I'm with you, Evan. The intro was amazing, and when that music first started, as he's walking towards them, that was just. I knew this film was going to be amazing from that moment.
The use of the footsteps.
Yeah. Cinematography was great too. Another favorite moment was Batman escaping the police department. I thought that was I just love how Gordon was like whispering to him, like, you need to get out of here, but he's like making it seem like he's having an argument with him. Yeah. And then there's the scene with all the coppers running after him in the police officers. We call them coppers in the UK. The scene where they're all running after him, like, to any means necessary, get him, and like none of them keep up with him. I love that.
I do have a question for you, Tasmin. It's been brought to my attention recently. Do cops in the UK really say hello, hello, hello every single time they interact with you?
I have never met one that says that.
According to Peppa
People
Pig,
say that. People say that.
according
Say
to
again?
Peppa Pig, every single police officer does that in the United Kingdom. So that's the
Peppa
only
Pig's a
reference point I have.
Peppa Pig is a liar. You heard it here first. Yeah, I've never met a copper that says that, but people say that to them,
Oh, okay.
and they call them pigs a lot, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have that slang here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part was good. And then I also like the bit where Selena found the guy, the police officer that was corrupt, that had her friend in the boot. I think he had it in the boot, and she's she kicks him off the building, and then Batman's like, "Don't waste your life." She's like, "I got 9 of them." I love that bit. I was just waiting for her to go meow at the end. I thought she was gonna do a little bit there, but hey ho.
That makes me cringe.
The line where he's got to pay, and he's like, "Sure, but you don't have to pay with him." I really like that moment too. I was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, that was good. And I also liked the bit in the asylum where Batman visits the Riddler, and he's kind of explaining how they work together, and Batman's like, "No." You see the Riddler really, you can see his reaction just change completely there, and then he just starts singing Ave Maria. That was just like, what?
Yeah. As much as I didn't like the third act, besides the Venom part, the one part that stood out to me was when Batman's asking who the thug is, and the thug's like, "I'm vengeance," and that really it's like, oh snap, Batman.
Yeah.
It's coming back.
That was kind of the part where he realized that the way that he was handling things didn't quite
working.
It wasn't working. Didn't have the best effect.
It's like the Riddler had the same sort of thing. He was scarred by this city, and he had a tragedy happen to him, and he decided to take the law into his own hands as well. But he doesn't have Batman's code or moral compass, and has taken it in a totally different direction. And I think that really struck a chord with Batman, and I don't know how that's going to affect him in the future.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to apologize for the unchronological order of this review. We've kind of just gone everywhere. But I have nothing else really left to say about this film other than I think it is a masterpiece. I think it's the most unique take on any superhero film, and it's probably, we've got a lot of Batman content, and I think this is the most unique, the most realistic, the most artistic version of it. And I hope, I just hope that more directors of these kinds of films take that route rather than going down the, I don't want to compare DC to Marvel, but you kind of have to at times, where Marvel films, they're all enjoyable. I don't think there's a Marvel film that I haven't enjoyed. I think Black Widow was my least favorite, by the way. But yeah, I think this artistic long film way would work really well with DC characters, and I think it would be good to see this version of every single DC character.
Well, and I think that there's a difference between DC and Marvel, in that Marvel has Kevin Feige, who is he's the showrunner of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and makes sure everything is on point in canon, in the style it's supposed to be. And I think that's done wonders for Marvel. And I think DC just really dropped the ball with that, trying to start out with the Snyderverse, because they abandoned their guy that they put their trust in, which was Zack Snyder. They're like, you set the tone and we'll make all the movies like you want them. And then they're like, nah, never mind. And so I think that has hindered them as far as the cohesiveness of their stuff. But yeah, I do agree. I don't think every DC film needs to be, dark like this, but as far as just being artful.
I don't necessarily mean dark, because this is a very dark film, but I think that's more because of the character that it's based on. That you probably couldn't do this kind of thing with another character. You couldn't do this kind of thing with Superman, I don't think. But in terms of what the Riddler does, and
that's the big exception I would put with that point, is that I don't want another artful Superman film. I want a popcorn eating Superman film where I want the Marvel version of Superman where it's just fun and great and adventurous and hopeful. Stop trying to be artful. It just hasn't worked out.
I want both. I want an artful Superman film, but then I want something that, because I think Man of Steel is my favorite film probably of all time. I love Man of Steel. It's my favorite Superman film as well. But I know that if I was trying to get a kid to watch that, they probably wouldn't be as interested in it as I am, because it's not, he has there's great moments that are for kids, well, not for kids, but that kids would enjoy, where he's using his powers, the superhero fights and stuff like that. But it's not really aimed towards kids. So I'd like a film where I could sit Cal when he's maybe like 4 or 5, take him to see it, and he's going to love the character. Hopefully he likes Man of Steel. Otherwise, he's not living in this house after he's raise him up, get out.
I mean,
I'm joking.
I love Superman Returns.
Yeah,
that's a very artful take on Superman.
Yep.
And just, we've had it, and we need something else. We need the Iron Giant of Superman movies. Get Brad Bird in there to direct the thing. We need the Incredibles of Superman movies.
I want a Pixar film of I know they're doing DC Super Pets and Superman's in it, but I want a film with just Superman and just Krypto alone. I think that would work.
The Buzz Lightyear movie.
Yeah, I think that would just work so well, and it would bring all the younger audiences that are like, oh, I love Spider-Man, because every kid that I've met seems to love Spider-Man, and I think but I think it's because it's so accessible. You've got all the cartoons, you've got the Into the Spider-Verse, you've got I think there's a thing called Amazing Spider Friends or something like that.
For little kids, yeah.
And I think if you make something that they can watch from that age and bring them up with it, then I think we just get a whole heap more of Superman fans, which is what everybody wants.
Yeah, and I think that's the point of this movie too, where they steeped it in Batman's roots. This is a noir piece, and that's where Batman got to start. He's a riff on Zorro and the Shadow and the Lone Ranger and all those type of characters, Dick Tracy.
Right.
Where they've always kind of missed with Superman, I feel, is that he's a science fiction story, and they don't ever want to hit on that science. He's an alien, for crying out loud,
Well, they hit on a lot of that in Man of Steel.
They did, but then they didn't really But then they wanted to put it in real life, and it's like, no, let's keep this sci-fi. Let's keep this, adventure. And
we need a John Carter sort of thing.
Yes. So to that point, I think. We do need, I think this one thing DC is missing right now is we got all these great shows, but they're not for children. Even their animated stuff, Harley Quinn, not for children. Some even not for adults. But they're kind of missing the ball on getting the younger viewers.
I think they have been doing well with the YA novels though, and getting younger audiences to read it, for those characters to read the comics. Like Superman Smashes the Klan, that was
that was very good.
Is it Dear Justice League and then Dear Supervillains? I thought that was really good as well. And there's also a new. It's called I Am Superman. I think there's an I Am Batman as well, and Wonder Woman as well. So that's coming out, which is by Brad Metzler.
But those aren't. They're not Superman stories. They're just like supplemental Superman material, It's not a genuine Superman story. Smashes the Klan was great, but the rest of the YA novels they're really not for kids. They're more for teenagers.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, I'm excited for that new Superman animated series to be on TV. And I really hope
no news with that either, is there? There's nothing since.
Maybe when we get to Fandom again, they'll have something.
They'll reveal.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Everything's getting pushed back, so maybe there's something in the pipeline that they're not revealing.
I thought you were going to say something in the way.
Well, there's that too.
There's a lot of room. Well, there's always been the hashtag Restore the Snyderverse, but there's so many rumors at the moment that things are happening with that. DC originally changed their this is just a Twitter thing, but DC originally changed their header to I can't remember what it was before, but it had none of the Snyderverse characters on. It had Wonder Woman on there, but that was more from the individual Wonder Woman films. And they didn't have Batfleck, and they didn't have Henry Cavill on it. There was Tyler Hoechlin, and they had Superman and Lois, and they've just changed the header to all the Snyderverse Trinity characters. So I don't know. I just think, and they're pushing all the films back, and Flashpoint could make anything possible. And what are they doing? I feel like something's happening. Fingers crossed.
We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with all of that said, and has anyone got anything else to say about the Batman before we wrap this up?
Yes, I feel like it was very unfaithful to the source material, being that it's based on the children's TV show, The Batman cartoon series, which is a great show, but this was nothing like that. So it's obviously a joke. It was not based on that.
I haven't seen it, so I thought you. I didn't think you were joking.
No, it is not based on the animated series.
No.
That's a great show.
Okay. A few people have actually asked me about that, but I haven't seen it, so I haven't been able to comment. But
no,
some people thought that the trailers looked a lot like the animated series or something.
That series is its own universe and does get a lot better if you can get past some of the character designs. Joker.
The Joker's not a traditional Joker, but he's great.
He's good.
He's very funny. Yeah.
You have to get past those designs though, and be like, okay, nope, this is his own thing, and it's worth a watch.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just a quick mention to our supporters on Patreon. We say this every episode, but it means a lot to us. And thank you to David Beasley. We can thank him in person now for being one of those members of the House of Al, and Dave Owen, of course. So thank you both for your ongoing support. If you want to find out more about our Patreon subscriptions, you can head to the link below, which is patreon.com/The Aspiring Kryptonian. To those listening live and getting involved, thank you so much. To those listening afterwards, thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you next time for episode 31, where we'll be talking about some of the latest Superman comic releases, which we've missed for several weeks. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.